They laughed at him, ignored him, even mocked the way he spoke. After all, what could a quiet black man know about policing? Then, the door opened. He walked in with a folder in hand, and a title none of them saw coming. Their smirks vanished. He was their new boss. Marcus Reed was born and raised on the south side of Atlanta, Georgia. His mother was a local schoolteacher, the kind who taught history like it was personal. His father, a neighborhood legend, part preacher, part organizer, always marching, always building coalitions, always fighting for a community that too often got left behind. From the start, Marcus knew what justice looked like, and more importantly, what it didn't. He saw his first police raid at age 8. Wrong house. Guns drawn. His uncle cuffed on the sidewalk for simply matching a vague description. Marcus never forgot the way his father held him close that night, saying, "We don't fix this by yelling. We fix it by getting inside the system." That stuck with him. In high school, Marcus was quiet but sharp. He listened more than he spoke. He watched how authority worked, and how often it failed people who looked like him. By the time he graduated, he didn't just want to be a police officer. He wanted to change what it meant to wear that badge. He entered the police academy with one goal: earn respect the right way. He graduated top of his class. Academics, field training, everything. But no matter how excellent he was, there were always whispers. Always someone questioning how he got there. Always subtle resistance when promotions were discussed. Still, Marcus kept his head down and his standards high. Over the years, his record spoke for itself. He solved cases others gave up on, diffused tensions without violence, and earned a reputation as the one who always followed through. Slowly, the promotions came. First detective, then sergeant, then lieutenant. Not because someone opened a door for him, but because he knocked until it came off the hinges. Now, at just 38, Marcus Reed is stepping into his biggest challenge yet, taking command of a precinct notorious for misconduct, arrogance, and a deep-rooted culture of silence. Some think he's in over his head. He doesn't care what they think. He didn't come to be liked. He came to lead. The 9th Precinct wasn't just troubled, it was infamous. Locals called it the Wild West, where rules bent for the boys in blue, and accountability vanished behind paperwork and silence. The officers here had built a fortress of habits: aggressive policing, unchecked authority, and a code of silence tighter than any manual ever written. The team was mostly white, mostly male, and deeply set in their ways. They rolled their eyes at training, laughed at oversight, and believed deeply that no one, not internal affairs, not the public, not City Hall, could touch them. Their locker room talk echoed with crude jokes, some racist, most demeaning, and always protected by each other. Body cams, when they worked at all, always seemed to glitch at the most critical moments. A chase goes sideways. Footage missing. A civilian files a complaint. Lost in transit or quietly closed. Trust with the community was paper-thin. People didn't call the precinct for help anymore. They called only when they had no other choice. At the top of this toxic pyramid were two men, Detective Travis and Sergeant Denton. Travis was smooth-talking and smug, the kind of cop who could charm the press while planting fear in a suspect. Denton, on the other hand, was old-school brutal, believed a nightstick spoke louder than a conversation. Together, they ran the place like a private club, deciding who rose, who got punished, and who got protected. When Marcus Reed first stepped into the building, dressed in plain clothes, quiet and observant, he didn't get a salute. He didn't even get a glance. Travis saw him in the hallway and muttered, "Lost, buddy." Denton didn't bother hiding his smirk. They thought Marcus was an auditor, maybe some community liaison sent to babysit. Nobody imagined he'd be their new commanding officer. Whispers followed him down the hall. "Who's the suit?" one voice said. "Probably checking boxes for the mayor," another added. One officer laughed. "Wonder how long this one lasts." They didn't know. They didn't ask. Because in their world, power looked a certain way. It walked a certain way. And it sure as hell didn't look like Marcus Reed. But they were about to learn. Power had just walked through the door, and it came with purpose. The briefing room buzzed with low conversation, half-hearted jokes, and unchecked egos. Word had spread fast that a new commander was taking over, sent from City Hall, supposedly to clean things up. The room was full of folded arms, side eyes, and cocky smiles. Most of them expected an outsider in a cheap suit, someone they could ignore until he gave up and went back downtown. Sergeant Denton leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, whispering something smug to Detective Travis. Travis just chuckled. Bet he won't last a month. Then the door opened. Marcus Reed stepped in, calm, sharp, deliberate. This time, he wasn't in plain clothes. He wore his full uniform, the gold bars on his collar gleaming under the fluorescent lights. His expression was unreadable. Not angry. Not boastful. Just steady. Focused. He walked straight to the front of the room, not looking left or right, and placed a slim folder on the podium. The room fell into a tense silence, some confused, others still clueless. Travis leaned forward slightly, that grin fading. Marcus opened the folder, pulled out a single sheet of paper, and read clearly. Effective immediately, by order of the Commissioner's office, I am assuming command of this precinct as acting captain. No one spoke. Marcus let the silence stretch. He scanned the room, locking eyes, not aggressively, but with authority that couldn't be questioned. Officers shifted in their seats. Someone coughed. One officer in the back looked down at his shoes, realizing the man they had mocked in the hallway was now the one signing their evaluations. And then Marcus spoke again. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to lead you. But let's be clear, this isn't a suggestion, and it's not a trial period. He let that sink in. Complaints will be reviewed. Body cams will be checked. Reports will be audited. If you're doing the job right, you've got nothing to worry about. But if you're not, if you've been hiding behind a badge instead of honoring it, your time is up. A beat of silence. This isn't a warning, he said. This is the new standard. With that, he closed the folder, gave a short nod, and walked out. The room stayed frozen, Travis stiff in his chair, Denton suddenly stone-faced. They weren't laughing anymore. The days that followed Marcus Reed's first morning as precinct commander were filled with tension so thick it pressed against the walls. He wasn't naive. He knew walking in with a title didn't mean walking in with respect. Not in a place like this. From the start, the resistance was subtle but intentional. A few officers showed up late to roll call. Others forgot to file reports. Some deliberately misread his instructions, forcing him to correct their mistakes in front of others. One even walked past Marcus without saluting, mumbling something under his breath. It was all designed to test him, to bait him into overreacting so they could call him emotional or unfit. But Marcus didn't shout. He didn't storm out. He did what he'd always done. He followed the playbook, and he made it work for him. First, he instituted a zero-tolerance policy on lateness, reinforced by policy memos. Those who showed up late were written up, formally. No arguments, no second chances. The message was clear: you don't have to like me, but you will respect the role. Then came the audits. Quietly, thoroughly, Marcus had complaint histories pulled, every use of force report, every community grievance, every suspiciously short body cam recording. Patterns emerged quickly, and the names involved didn't surprise him. Travis, Denton, a handful of others with stacks of paperwork that had somehow never reached disciplinary review. New body cam protocols followed. Marcus brought in an outside tech consultant to install automatic upload systems. No more malfunctions. Officers were required to check cameras at the start and end of every shift. Those who didn't comply faced suspension. Some started falling in line. Younger officers, especially, began to see that Marcus wasn't here to grandstand. He was there to protect the badge by cleaning it. A few even approached him after hours for advice or to thank him. But others, they grew colder, meaner, and none more than Travis. One night, Marcus walked into the squad room to find Travis sitting on a desk, joking loudly about Captain Quota and how long before this place turns into a daycare. The room laughed, weakly, nervously, until they saw Marcus standing just a few feet away. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't ask questions. He walked straight to Travis, looked him in the eye, and said, calm and clear, "You think you scare me because of your badge?" Travis stood, puffing his chest slightly. "I earned this badge." Marcus didn't blink. "That badge," he said, "now reports to me. So either you wear it right, or you hand it in." For a moment, it felt like the whole building was holding its breath. Travis said nothing, and in that silence, power shifted. Not through force, not through fear, through presence, through leadership, through the kind of strength that didn't need to yell to be heard. Marcus turned and walked out, leaving behind a room that was finally starting to realize he wasn't just their boss. He was the change they couldn't stop. The air in the precinct began to shift, but not without friction. Marcus Reed had been patient, strategic, and unrelenting. Still, he knew there had to be a moment, a tipping point, when the wall finally cracked. That moment came on a Tuesday afternoon. It started with a ride-along. Marcus announced it at morning briefing. He would personally join patrols, unannounced and rotating. The room was silent. Some officers squirmed in their chairs. Others tried to hide their nervousness. He was sending a clear message. Accountability wouldn't come from behind a desk. That afternoon, he rode with Officer Malloy, a mid-level patrolman with a handful of minor complaints that had never gone anywhere. Malloy kept his cool at first, but Marcus noticed things. The way he used a tone with black teenagers that he didn't use with white ones, how he purposely slowed response time in a low-income neighborhood, and most notably, when he aggressively questioned a young Latino driver for looking suspicious, despite the man doing nothing wrong. Marcus didn't intervene right away. He watched, took mental notes. And then, back at the precinct, he filed a misconduct report himself, against one of his own officers. The internal affairs process was swift. The evidence, supported by dash cam and Marcus's own statement, was irrefutable. The public found out within days. But this time, the calls coming into the precinct weren't filled with anger, they were full of surprise. And thanks. Finally, someone's watching. That commander is doing the job right. The precinct's reputation, long buried under scandals, began to flicker with hope. A week later, Marcus hosted a community event. He called it Coffee, Not Cuffs. Free food, music, and an open mic. Officers sat with residents, answering real questions, hearing real pain. It wasn't perfect, but something happened that hadn't happened in years. Connection. Even some of the hardened officers were moved when a 10-year-old girl handed Sergeant Malik, one of the few black veterans on the force, a hand-drawn picture of a police badge and said, "Thank you for making us feel safe again." But not everyone embraced the change. Detective Denton, once untouchable, was slipping. Marcus's audits caught him red-handed trying to bury a use-of-force complaint. The report had been altered, dates changed, witness statements missing. It wasn't just unethical. It was illegal. Marcus called him into his office the next morning. Denton barged in already fuming. "This is bull. I've been on the force 20 years and—" "You've been warned," Marcus said, his voice even. "I don't take orders from someone who doesn't know what real police work looks like." Marcus stood, slowly walking around the desk to meet Denton eye to eye. His tone never changed. "You take orders from the rules," he said. "And the rules say you lied, altered evidence, and compromised the trust of this entire department." Denton scoffed, threw up his hands. "I should have known this place was going to hell the day they let you walk through that door." Marcus didn't flinch. He stepped aside and motioned toward the hallway. Pack your desk." Security escorted Denton out that afternoon. Some watched in silence. Others looked relieved. That night, Marcus sat alone in his office, reading a letter from a local church thanking him for bringing light into a dark place. It wasn't a victory lap, but it was something more powerful. The precinct wasn't fixed, but it was finally changing. 6 months later, the precinct didn't just feel different, it was different. Gone were the lazy jokes echoing through locker rooms, the blank stares when community members walked in with concerns, the culture of silence that had once protected misconduct like a badge of honor. Instead, there was something that hadn't existed there in years: accountability with backbone. Marcus Reed had never raised his voice. He never needed to. His presence alone had become a quiet authority. Officers knew he walked the halls not just to supervise, but to observe. He greeted civilians in the lobby. He stopped by patrol briefings even when he wasn't scheduled to. And when he spoke, it was intentional, measured, and never wasted. He'd expanded recruitment efforts, pushed for language and bias training, and began mentoring new recruits personally. The hiring board now looked different. More women, more officers of color, more people from the very neighborhoods they served. Complaint rates dropped by over 40%, and civilian engagement doubled. But it wasn't just numbers that told the story. It was moments. Like the day a grandmother came in to thank the department for helping her grandson safely get home after a misunderstanding. Or when a former critic of the department said during a town hall, "I never thought I'd say this, but y'all are earning it." And then there was the young black recruit, fresh out of the academy, nervous but eager, who walked up to Marcus in the hallway one morning. He had a crisp uniform, but his hands fidgeted at his sides. "Sir," he said, standing straight, "I joined because of you." Marcus looked at him for a moment, the same way his father used to look at him, quietly proud. "Then make it worth it," he replied simply. That evening, Marcus stood on the steps of the precinct. The sky was fading orange, and the street below buzzed with familiar sounds. Kids playing, a church choir practicing nearby, the soft hum of traffic. He looked out, not at the building, but at the people walking past it. Some nodded. One woman gave a small wave. He nodded back. The precinct behind him had changed. But more importantly, so had the people it served. His job wasn't done. It never would be. But it was moving, step by step, one policy, one person at a time. Change doesn't knock. It walks through the door, calm, black, and in charge.